The Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestra concert is quickly approaching and the hype is real. It will occur on Saturday, February 13th, starting at 4 p.m. Japan time. Unfortunately for me, it's a Japan-only event. So what I plan on doing, and what I suggest for you to do as well, is to follow Audrey on Twitter. Her account is @itaikimochi, as she will be attending the virtual event, and she mentioned that she will be live tweeting the event as well. Like anything, they could make some big announcements, or they could literally make some nothing announcements. But in this video, let's talk about 3 different predictions. Some of these predictions might be bold, some might be obvious, some might be dumb, but hopefully you'll get a kick out of the video regardless. Let's get odd. So for number 1, let's talk about ports. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a timed PlayStation 4 exclusive until April 10th, 2021, which is less than 2 months away. So I know a lot of people are hoping for a PC port or a port for the PS5. Those 2 are the more likely ports. There hasn't been any signs or any news regarding an Xbox release, but Final Fantasy 15 had an Xbox One release, so you never really know with these things. Final Fantasy 15 also had a Stadia release, but we don't need to talk about that. No one ever needs to talk about that. Here's kind of a dumb prediction. It's not really a prediction, it's just something that I want. But if they were to release a port of Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Switch, I'd be tempted to get it. To be able to play that game and experience that story on the go, that would be awesome. And I'm sure there's a bunch of Switch owners out there that don't necessarily own a PlayStation or an Xbox, and they might not be PC players either. So I would actually love for the game to come to the Switch, but I know it's extremely unlikely. So number 2 prediction, let's talk about trademarks. About a month ago, there was some news regarding some new trademarks from Square Enix, including Ever Crisis, The First Soldier, and the Shinra Electric Power Company logo. I made a video recently speculating that Ever Crisis could be connected to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and Ever Crisis was recently trademarked in the United States. I imagine that Ever Crisis has got to be connected to the story of Crisis Core and the character of Zack Fair. So unfortunately, we're not sure what any of these trademarks could mean or what they're alluding to, whether they're related to the name of the next installment of the game, or they're the names of DLCs, new titles, reboots, or remakes. So I have a question for you. I also saw recently there was a new trademark, the Isle Dragon Roar. So what do you think that could be? I mean, it could be related to Yuffie or Wutai, or it could be completely unrelated. But I saw that in the news recently and I thought it was pretty interesting. So prediction number 3 is a new version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So Final Fantasy 15 eventually got the Royal Edition. It contained additional DLC, which had further story, gameplay, and technical improvements. We could get something similar for Final Fantasy VII Remake, quite possibly for the ports on PC or PS5. Perhaps the new edition could have additional cutscenes or additional story. Or maybe the new edition could be called Final Fantasy VII Remake Ever Crisis Edition. Or maybe there's going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake Pocket Edition. That would be terrible. So here's my question for you. What do you think they're going to announce during the Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestra concert? Do you think they're going to make some big announcements? Or do you think it's too early to announce anything big for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2? Let me know in the comments. For other videos from Odd Drummer Gaming, click or tap the screen. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, consider subscribing if you want to see more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Stay odd and keep on playing.